Welcome, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. If we could please start with a moment of silence for prayer or reflection. Thank you.
So first up, we have adoption of the agenda.
Councillor Pearson, we'll just let him.
Thank you, Worship. A point of privilege. Mayor and council members, this is Healing and Reconciliation Week again in Medicine Hat. 1st of May marks the beginning of that event. This morning there was a sacred fire ceremony that took place at the TP, but tomorrow at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. there's a Care and Connection storytelling event at the Esplanade, and all are welcome to that event. On Wednesday from 5:30 to 9, there will be a survivors banquet again at the Esplanade. Again, this event is open to our entire community. Healing must take place in the hearts of residential school survivors and those who have suffered from prejudices. But reconciliation can only happen if our wider community participates in these events. Reconciliation is about forgiveness. It's important that both parties are there. So I encourage the community to take part in these events that last throughout this week, mostly at the Esplanade.
Thank you. I'll be there Wednesday night. Okay.
So if there's no changes to the agenda, we'll move on to adoption of the minutes.
Any additions? Okay, seeing none.
Okay. Adoption of the minutes, item 2.1, page 3. Minutes from our last meeting of April 17th.
Any errors, omissions? Okay, seeing none, we'll adopt the minutes.
Okay, moving on now to our presentation for tonight. We have the annual report from the Medicine Hat Public Library, given by Rose Sanchez, who's chair of the Medicine Hat Public Library Board.
Welcome, Rose. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. I just want to thank you for inviting me to speak tonight on behalf of the rest of the board and the staff about the success we saw at Medicine Hat Public Library in 2016. MHPL's Board of Trustees believes the library is a space that builds community. It's a place for everyone. Last fall, we underwent our annual satisfaction survey, and we were pleased to learn the majority of the respondents agree with us. We had almost 1,000 responses, and of those, more than 90% said that the library is important to them. Comments about the library and its importance included that people feel very privileged to have such a mass of entertainment and information at such a tiny cost, grateful that there is an essential service like a library in our community, that tax dollars are well used and the library is a valuable asset, and that the library is a vibrant entrance into the heart of the community. We asked our users how the public library makes them feel: happy, relaxed, comfortable, safe, fortunate, smart, thrifty, and proud. Over and over, the same phrases came up: connected, included, valued, supported, empowered, community, and home. I think people feel this way because of the vast number of programs and services that we offer. And that just shows a little bit of the work that we did in the community in 2016. I'll point a little bit to the farmers market. It's kind of a special area for us that we've tried to do for the last few years. It's like a little bit of a branch, second branch for us, and a place where we can bring items that people can actually borrow at the farmers market, and they can return items there as well. And we answered 514 questions there, had 23 new memberships, and 50 renewals processed just at that location in 2016. And then we had 11 other outreach events in 2016 that reached more than 2,000 people. Of course, we have our popular children's department, where more than 13,000 questions were answered. Our staff are pretty busy there. More than 4,000 people took in 152 story times throughout the course of the year, and our summer reach was 2,780 through the summer reading programs, and that's also pretty important to us because it gives continuity for those kids through the summer months. When they're not in school, they still have a place where they can really focus on those literacy skills. We have tween programs, teen programs, and we have adult programs, and they combined attracted almost 9,000 people. And while we're really thankful for our renovation for our theater to be underway, we are missing it, as you can see. Just when it came to films last year, we showed 132 with close to 3,000 in attendance. And I'll just point the photo there you actually see with the people with the newspapers on their heads. That was from a special event we held where we showed the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and it was actually full interaction. So, because it had been planned as a Trash the Theater event before we were going to get underway for our renovations. Of course, as things happen, our renovations didn't get underway. So our chief librarian and her husband were there till well past 2 a.m. that night to clean up every little sparkle and all the little debris so that theater could be put back into use the next day. So it was a fun event, though. Of course, volunteers are integral to any nonprofit organization, and ours is no different. We have 272 of them, plus the Friends of the Library, and they gave us more than 2,500 hours of their time. As of December 31st last year, we had more than 12,400 active members. We know there are more out there with membership cards, but some residents don't realize that we like them to renew their card on an annual basis so we can ensure our information stays current. There were more than 240,000 visits to the library in 2016, and your city residents are a very inquisitive bunch, asking our knowledgeable staff more than 28,000 questions. And there's some of our friendly staff. A staggering statistic on paper is more than 672,000 items, which of course can include everything from books to music to movies, were circulated more than 543,000 times last year. That is a well-loved and well-used collection. It also speaks to the relevance of libraries, with more than 500,000 items in our virtual collection. Of course, we have an online presence with an active website, and our public computers are well used, with more than 3,400 making use of the service, equating to more than 25,000 hours. So what does it all cost? We believe it's incredible value for the dollars. Of course, our biggest supporter, and we are very appreciative of that, is you guys, the City of Medicine Hat. The vast majority of that funding helps cover our biggest asset, which actually leaves the building every night, our staff. We're fortunate to also receive provincial funding, other grants, and donations to help pay for our next biggest expense, which is, as it should be, materials and programs. And we're very close to having our theater renovation paid for, but as you can see, short some money if we want to have as little debt as possible. Earlier this year, we did launch a seat plaque program where individuals and businesses can purchase a plaque for a seat in our new theater, which can be in their name or that of a loved one. Those have been met with a positive response from the community and our patrons at the affordable price of $125, and you get a $110 tax receipt issued. If you're interested, contact the library, but don't wait too long, as there's only going to be 165 about available. We've also held a successful Love in the Library fundraiser again this year in February. We introduced that event in our anniversary year in 2015, and then took a break and then brought it back this last February. We're going to hold that again in next February. It'll be February 9th, 2018, so mark your calendars. And this unique evening offers the opportunity to mingle in the library after hours and support enhanced programming and services. Our good work continues both in the library and around the board table this year as we prepare our next plan of service to guide our steps starting next year through to 2020. We also look forward to ensuring we maintain a strong relationship with the city, both in practice and on paper. Again, I want to thank Council and the City of Medicine Hat administration for the support the library receives. The library is here to enhance the vitality of this community and help educate, enrich, entertain, and inform everyone. It has been quoted that bad libraries build collections, good libraries build services, great libraries build community. Thank you for helping us to be a great library and build this community.
Thank you very much, Rose. Any questions or comments? Councillor Pearson?
Your Worship, I'd like to move reception of this presentation with Council's gratitude for the many and varied services the Public Library has provided residents to this city and community area for the last 100 years. It's quite an amazing accomplishment. And if I may, just a brief other comment.
Get a seconder. Okay, go ahead.
The Public Library is a community hub for lifelong learning, and it's really clear that that has been a message and a mission that's been amply filled. I love the expansion of services. The fact that you could get a full library service at the farmer's market is incredible. And the outreach to homebound clients and senior residences, programs for all ages, all of those things are major achievements for a library anywhere in this nation. But for me, one of the great measures of success is the appreciation shown by the number of volunteers and the loyalty by the number of former employees and board members who donate to the services provided by this library. So congratulations to the library and to the staff for running great programs and building that community.
Thank you. Councillor McIntosh?
Thanks, Your Worship. As the City Council representative on the library board for the last year and a half, I can honestly say that I have learned an absolute ton about the variety of work that the library does and the opportunities that they provide for the people in our community. The board needs to be commended, but obviously significantly more than that, it's the staff who are so incredibly adaptable and see needs in the community and identify new programs and ways to meet those needs. So I would like to thank both the board and the staff for their ongoing work, and you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Councillor Friesen?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation, Rose. I was looking forward to it. And I'd like also to acknowledge in the gallery we've got a great many of the library staff and also some board members, and you do a tremendous job. The library's got a very special place in my heart, and you all do too. Libraries aren't just about books anymore. Our library is, and I'm a big patron, so I admit I'm a little biased, but it is a place where you can walk in and feel welcome. A lot of people spend a lot of time there. It can even be like a second home to them and like a family. The staff are like family. And they treat you like family. And they come over, hi, how are you doing? And everyone has something there for them where they can feel included. And there are many opportunities that those that don't go to the library or know about the library would be absolutely amazed to find out what there is there for them. And I just think it's absolutely fantastic. It also makes available the use of internet and all the technology that not all folks are able to have at home, and that's a wonderful thing as well. So that whole community environment, to me, with something for everyone, I think is a real celebration for our library. I happen to think our library is particularly strong in that area, and that's because of all of you. And I hope that anyone listening who does not have a library card or has not gone over there to go over and really see what the library is about, because it's about books, sure, but it's about a whole bunch more. So I just thank you all.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I've been really noticing at the bottom of Allowance Avenue on the digital board, you have that. I think it's a very creative advertising campaign, the 3 things that you can do at the library, crochet and then the other things. And it catches my eye every time because it's different every time I go by. So I don't know whose idea that was, but that was very creative. Oh, we're pointing. There you go. So, any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion for reception. That was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving along now to our public hearing. On page 10, item 4.1, you'll find Bylaw 4429, Bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend Bylaw 4168, the City of Medicine Hat Land Use Bylaw. This is regarding address 501 7th Avenue Southwest. I received one submission, which is in your packets.
I move that the bylaw number 4429 be read a second time.
I'll second that.
So we're required to have a public hearing, so I'll ask if anybody would like to come down and speak for or against this bylaw. Please come down and state your name. I will ask a second time if anybody would like to come down and speak for or against this bylaw. Please come down and state your name. I will ask a third and final time if anybody would like to come and speak for or against this bylaw. Please come down and state your name. All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. We have a seconder on second reading. Any questions or comments from council? Councillor Cox?
Well, I will be voting against this. I'm going to preface that with, or follow that up with a couple of remarks on the point. First of all, I'm surprised that the proponent is not here to support or defend his application. Nobody for or against. I guess it kind of just leaves it up to us to do what we think is right. And what I think is right under these circumstances is to vote against this. I note the options considered on page 16 of your packet. I found that a little amusing, quite frankly. Option 1, leave as is with no rezoning assigned. This option was not considered appropriate, as this would not allow for the future development of the site as a healthcare office. That did not seem like a good enough reason to me. I am of the view that zoning should only be changed very cautiously, very carefully, if a real need for that change is demonstrated. And given a number of things, the high traffic and parking problems in that area, I think speak against it. It's currently R1, low, got to get over these old designations. It's low-density residential. It is a corner lot, which helps a little bit. It is across the street from a property that has been rezoned. And there's getting to be such a lot of traffic in that area that it is, as the person who wrote against it stated, it's becoming a bit of a problem for those who want to see the neighborhood maintained as a residential neighborhood. But I'm not prepared to abandon that just yet. And under all of the circumstances, I will not support the rezoning application.
Thank you, Councillor Friesen.
Well, Your Worship, I have a question and then a couple of comments. So if I could direct the question, I'll direct it to the CAO, and if you need to our Commissioner of Development and Infrastructure. I had thought this address would be within the Herald redevelopment zone. So could one of you tell me, because when I think about that redevelopment plan, it seems to me that we agreed that we could have no more of this kind of development because of the intensity of traffic and so on. So tell me if I'm wrong. I'm just wondering where it stands with that plan.
Through the chair to Councillor Friesen, no, it's outside of the Herald redevelopment zone.
Okay, could I just ask you then, CAO Haglund, how far out is it? Is it one of those ones that's just on the very edge?
I would have to check that. Perhaps the Commissioner has a more precise answer.
Thank you. Through the chair, the southwest corner of the Herald Area Redevelopment Plan intersects at 4th Avenue and 5th Street, southwest. This address is 7th Avenue and 5th Street, southwest, so it's approximately 3 blocks away.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, I'll make my comments then. I just, I can see why the applicant would have this request, because there are a number of offices in that area, and if it was me, I would see some compatibility there for another healthcare kind of location. I just feel that even though it is not within the confines of the Herald area, another designation here would not meet the spirit and intent of the Herald plan. I think the traffic is quite intense there. We have experienced parking challenges in that area for years, and tried all kinds of ways of mitigating that. And I just personally do not feel that it's prudent for us to support any further development in that area with these kinds of offices. So I really hope that the person who wants to do this is able to find a location in a little less dense traffic and parking area, but I'm not going to be able to support it either.
Thank you, Councillor McIntosh.
Thanks, Your Worship. I am also challenged to support this. I drive through this area daily. I drive right in front of this proposed site. The traffic flow is very difficult at many times of the day. This is a community of, for the most part, single-family homes. And looking at that close proximity to that lot, there was decisions made to allow this type of development. But unfortunately, I do not feel that continuing to change the nature of this community is in the entire community's best interest. And I agree wholeheartedly with the individual who asked us to seriously look at this and reject it, so I will be rejecting it tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Dumanowski.
Your Worship, a lot of the arguments I would raise have already been raised, and I too have concerns around the traffic. For me, when I think about some of the parking changes that have occurred in the past, one of the ones that comes to mind, I know that I heard back from the public when we made those changes, was that we moved to permitted parking along that corridor. And now, if we have a commercial aspect to it, does it revert back to paid parking, for example? Or would a business have an advantage that other businesses that are in a home style of development have the same provisions allowed for them? Because one of the considerations was that as a residence, it fit the same use as the other residents, and therefore you had to have a permit except for after hours, et cetera. So there are a lot of complications I believe we open up with a change here. And it's not that I'm opposed to the spirit of the application. I too, and I'm guilty in the past of supporting on the odd amendment in this area, now going back over a number of years, and I don't necessarily regret it, and it's not that I'm picking favors, but I believe when we did the Herald redevelopment, although this is outside of it, and I thank you for that clarification, the spirit of that redevelopment plan was to say, whoa, slow down, folks. We have a residential area, and I believe this is still in there, and people want it to be maintained in such a state, and I think that was the intent of that redevelopment plan. It was an opportunity for us to reflect on our practices going forward, and this council and future councils to really look at this carefully. If you know, I knew there were a shortage of commercial or business spaces in this city, I would be more supportive, I suppose. But for a number of reasons, I can't support it today.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, I think those were all good comments. I drove by there again today. I've been struggling with this one, but I think in the past, you know, that when you did make some exemptions, it was for doctors' offices, and they wanted to have that close proximity to the hospital, to be on call or to make a quick run over to the hospital and get back to their practice, and that isn't the case here, so I won't be supporting it as well. Any other comments? Okay, if we could vote. And that was, what is that, 6 no, 2 yes, so that doesn't pass. Defeated. Okay.
Okay, moving on to reports now. Our first report's item 5.1 on page 20, Administrative Committee meeting, and this report's for information.
I'll move the report for information.
Second?
Any comments? Okay, if we could vote. And that was unanimous, thank you.
Our next item's 5.2 on page 26, Energy and Utilities Committee meeting of April 20th, and this is for adoption and information.
So move.
Any comments? Councillor Pearson?
Through the chair to our Commissioner of Energy and Utilities, I'd like to know a little bit more about Core Prop and why that sole source purchase order is necessary. Could we have just a little more of an explanation, please?
Go ahead.
Through the chair. By using Corpro, as I've stated previously, we maintain a continuity between Corpro and AltaLink. Therefore, we avoid mobilization and demobilization costs, and the work is continuous, and we have a cost savings by doing that. By also having Corpro work closely with AltaLink for this project purposes, we do not step in between the two in doing the work, and therefore we reduce our liabilities.
Thank you. I think that's an important distinction that our public deserves to know, and thank you for the answer.
Thank you. Councillor McIntosh?
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm just looking for some clarification on that as well. It seems to me, reading this, that it would be AltaLink that would be going for the sole source rather than the City of Medicine Hat, since they're the ones actually paying for this. Could I get some clarification on that?
Through the Chair to Councillor McIntosh, we are actually running the project, if you like. We have control over the project because it's our pipeline. So they're in our right of way, and we want control over the work going on. But you're absolutely correct, it's being paid for by AltaLink. So it's, the costs are being passed straight through. Now, this company has been working with AltaLink, you know, across the province as they've been doing their transmission line upgrades. So in a sense, they had already contracted with AltaLink, but in this case, we're going in between so that we can control the work that's going on our pipeline.
Good, thank you. Councillor Turner?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a couple of comments and maybe a question on the two benchmarking reports we have in this report, and it's both on wastewater and solid waste, and this is probably the fifth one we've had now, and it's really good to see how we compare with other municipalities. But I'm just wondering if council could ask for maybe a report on where this has actually ended up showing us some savings. You know, I know we talk about we're going to become more efficient, but when we're comparing ourselves to other municipalities, hopefully there comes a time where we can say, yeah, you know, this particular municipality is doing something better than we are, and maybe there's an opportunity for us to save some money. And I would just love to know that if that's come about at any time with the 4 or 5 that we've had, and what those savings might have been. You don't have to do that today, but I just...
Fair enough. Through the Chair to Councillor Turner. To me, it's one of the big benefits of doing these benchmarking studies is the direct professional contact between our staff and staff in all the other municipalities, where they get down to talking about how do you actually conduct your operations. And there's no doubt there's learning going on. I can't point to a dollar figure. I think, in fact, what we have confirmed is that we have very efficient, very effective processes throughout in what we've seen so far. However, one of the things we learned, for example, is about different service levels. So in Airdrie, they have a 3-bag limit. Well, it's easy to run cheap garbage services if you put an absolute hard limit on how much garbage can be put out. I mean, so you know, you see kind of cost savings from various operating models from different service levels, and that's one thing I think that will stand us in good stead as we implement changes to our service levels. We're better able to predict what the impacts might be. Not that we're going to a 3-bag limit, but you know, it's an example of how we see those kinds of impacts in the costs.
Thank you. Councillor Cox?
Just in partial answer to Councillor Turner and to supplement what the CAO has already said. Staff explained it to committee when we received this and the other reports. It's about the conversation that these kinds of comparative analyses generate. To quantify the savings may be a little bit more challenging, but where we are able to do so, I'm sure staff will be happy to report back to us and say where they have taken an idea or an approach and been able to realize actual cash savings. But it's a good conversation to have. It benefits all of the communities that take part, and I have no doubt that our community is benefiting as well.
Thank you. Councillor Friesen?
Thanks. It's mostly been said and said well by the 2 other councillors. I just wanted to, and the CAO, I just wanted to add that for me, I wasn't, when we undertook this, I wasn't sure. I was really interested in seeing what the results were of the various ones, and I've really personally felt a lot of value in hearing the analysis. And I think we ought to be careful that we don't look at them and just compare ourselves with another community with an eye towards only one thing, or when you look at the graphs, maybe we're not always the lowest, although we're always, in all of them we've done so far, are very competitive, and I'm very pleased and proud about that. I think we have to look at it beyond that, because there are only some within the ones that are there that would be true comparators. Others provide service in a different way, and those kinds of things. And so it's in the conversation, as was pointed out, and the learning that comes from doing these benchmarking studies that I believe is the real true value. And in doing that, and in the conversations and figuring out what the differences are and how they're done, you know, how they even do their accounting, is that's where we can learn about making some adjustments and also affirm what we're already doing and saying, yeah, we do it this way, and these are the reasons why we do it this way, and it works best for our community in this way. So I just wanted to highlight that, because it's easy enough to look at it and say, oh, they're good, we're not. And not the case at all. It's been really enlightening for me to look at these, and I'd urge anyone that's interested to have a look, because they're quite insightful.
Councillor Varga?
Through the chair, I also found it very interesting in a lot of the categories, and a lot of the times we're comparing apples to oranges, right? And I always kept looking at Lethbridge and Airdrie, who Airdrie's almost as big as what we are now, and they seem to be a lot more expensive than we are, but their systems are all different. So I found it very interesting. Yet Lethbridge is a little bit bigger than us, and they seem to come in underneath us a lot of the times in the comparisons all the time. So I think it's a great question what Councillor Turner asks, and to see what some of those comparisons are and how maybe we can tweak ours maybe a little bit more so that we become a little bit less dependent on certain areas, and kind of take some of their ways of doing stuff to put in. It might never work, right? And don't get me wrong, our service is very good with what we do and the amount of pipes that we have in the ground, and how much is moving forward. And it's interesting to see that the more volume you have in a city, the less it costs you to move that material. Right, so I found that very intriguing, that you'd think that because they have more people, that it should cost way more to move that stuff through the pipes, but it doesn't. It's actually more efficient to have more people and more moving through the pipes. So I found this very interesting. I'd love to see some of the comparisons. Some of them are not even in our ballpark, but some of them are close to what we do. So I think we can take some of their ideas and maybe integrate it into something that we do. So I hope we do that, and I hope that's part of this benchmarking that we're doing here now, that we'll find those efficiencies and maybe instill them in some of our technology that we do here in Medicine Hat. So it's very interesting. I love reading through it, and I'm not a great graph guy. I don't love a lot of graphs, but these graphs tell a lot really as to where we are and how expensive it is to move the stuff around in Medicine Hat. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right, if we could vote. That was unanimous. Thank you.
Our next report is item 5.3 on page 198. You'll find the Public Services Committee meeting of April 24th, and this report's for adoption and information.
I move this report for information and adoption.
Any comments? Councillor Varga?
Through the chair, again, I find it very interesting that we get lucky enough to get a lot of these grants sent our way, because we're so ingrained in the program now that we usually take them up on their offers when it comes to our transit system. And I think it's great that we're going to improve a lot of our facilities that are within the confines of the grants that are coming forward. I think it's great for us. I guess I just wonder if they're ever going to look at us and say, well, you guys have almost got the best system going in the province. You don't need any more of our money, but they keep giving it to us, so it's great that they do keep giving it to us. So we should actually have the best transportation model within a city in the province, right? So I just wish we'd use it more, or people would use it more, or have that where we can make it feasible to make money or to break even. Let's say break even. I don't know if we'll ever get to the point where we're making money with our transit system, but it would be nice to get to that break even point. Or maybe if the gas price keeps going up or diesel keeps going up, maybe more people will use the buses, right? So we're not a big city, and it's tough to to actually fathom that happening within Medicine Hat, because everybody's used to driving their vehicles to a place that they have to get to. So thank the government for doing that. I guess my question was, are they ever going to look at us and say that you guys have got enough money from us and they might not give us any more because you've got the best transportation in Alberta?
We don't have an LRT yet. I don't know. It's pretty difficult to predict what the government's going to do going forward. Councillor Turner?
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess that was my question. Is this new funding we're applying for? I see we've already actually approved we were going to do these projects, but now we're, instead of using the gas tax or internal loans, we're looking at green trips. So I'm hoping this is going to be new money coming to us.
Through the chair to Councillor Turner, we had expected this funding, and in fact, we had showed it through the budget process. We discussed it, but we didn't have final confirmation at the time when you, or in time to prepare all the background for you to approve the budget with this funding in. So for 7 of these projects, it's just a change in funding source. For 4 of them, we had them on the list and said, so essentially they were approved pending this grant funding. So if this grant funding had not come through, we would not have gone for those projects. And then we have an additional 3 projects that we were able to add on as well with this funding that came through. So yeah, it's new money. Yeah.
Good. Councillor Pearson?
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Varga, you're a dreamer, but I love that. I think that it's important to recognize that there are services that we provide that are public services, and this is never going to be a paying proposition, but what's happening with our transit system is certainly major improvements, and that project review that's coming up in this particular spring is going to give us some answers about how we can be more effective and efficient. And rates will not change this year, which is another exciting thing for me. I think the other thing to note is I was quite excited about the fact that our transit system uses a natural resource that's close at hand, and we have built a compressed natural gas station to fuel our buses. And when I raised this at a meeting with other representatives from other cities and said, you know, we should be given some kind of credit, especially the carbon tax credit, for the work that we've done to be clean in our energy. And some snide remark from Red Deer said, well, we have electric buses, and that's even cleaner. But the thing that they miss when they say that is power generation is one of the heavy emitters of carbon emissions into the air, and I think we're doing just as well as anybody and probably need to be recognized for it. So I'm troubled by it. I'm also excited by the fact that when we took a tour of the bus area in the fall as a council, we could see some of these projects that were really needed. The disposal shack and some of those kinds of things, and the bus wash system. It's really nice to see those back on the table as projects for the future, and they can do nothing but improve our transit system. So I'm delighted by the fact that grants came through. I'm even more pleased that the province and the feds decided to fund the last call for green trip funding as an entire funded by the other levels of government, and I know we're going to put it all to good use.
Thank you. Councillor Dumanowski?
Councillor Varga, we're not going to let them forget. So we're never going to be in a situation where we're not going to be able to apply for more grants. We'll adapt accordingly. We won't let them off that easy. I know that most of these are new. These are just new funding sources. Again, the CEO clarified. I'm particularly pleased with the accessible bus stop upgrades. I know we're able to do a different source of funding, which also allows us to increase the project budget and I think move it up. So when I look at all the different aspects that go with transit, we think of the cost of getting on and service times, et cetera, but accessibility is a big part, and we're making these bus stops more accessible. A lot of people who use them or have the need to use them have mobility issues, and so I know we've been very aggressive in moving forward with that initiative for many years now, and I'm pleased to see we're going to continue to do that. So my last parting comment is the transit building security fence, $100,000. Is it electric? What is it? That's an expensive fence, so I don't know if I'm being whimsical or if you really want to tackle that question, but it seems to me that's a pretty hefty price for a fence, but I'm sure there's value there.
Through the chair, it's a pretty large area to be fenced, and we have had a number of security infractions in other compounds, such as parks, with vehicles vandalized and so on, and it doesn't take a lot of loss or theft or vandalism to make up $100,000, unfortunately. We keep a lot of material and a lot of vehicles, and it's a fairly open area. So it was a project that had been down prioritized, but with the grant money available, we are able to go forward. Whether it'll be the full 100,000, we will see. We will obviously tender it and make sure that it is as cheap as we can make it. But it needs to be tall, and it probably needs to have several layers of barbed wire on top and so on, not be scalable, that kind of thing. So, but not electrified, no.
Thanks for the clarity.
Any other comments? If we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Moving on now to Corporate Services Committee meeting of April 25th, item 5.4 on page 234, and this is for information.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any comments? Councillor Varga?
Through the chair, I just want to talk a little bit about Notify Me Now. I think one of the biggest things in the information that was brought to us at Corporate Service was that only 7% of the people in Medicine Hat had actually applied themselves. So it kind of was a low figure for me at the time, that only 7% of the people had actually registered to get notified from the city when something does happen. So, but they've assured me that through all the other people and all the yellow pages and the white pages, I think we're well over 30,000 people that are going to get notified through this program. So I think it's very exciting that when something does happen that's crucial within our community, that they are going to get notified either by email or through their phones or whatever way they said they were going to get notified by in their application, that they're going to get notified. I think it's a great program. I just wish more people would have got involved and would have put their cell phones or their home phones or whatever. It's not something that we're going to use the information and do something bad to you down the road. It's actually a good thing. It's a good news story that we're going to get you involved in something that's happening within Medicine Hat that could be catastrophic down the road, and it's a way of getting to you so that you can either save some property or save yourselves or save whatever's happening at that time. So I think it's a great program, and I wish we'd have a little bit more buy-in. I guess we'll see when it starts coming forward and the tests start happening, and whether the people take it upon themselves to actually register themselves, and the number of phones that they have. So not everybody has only one phone, so it'd be great to get people involved in this program.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Worship. I want to commend the Corporate Services Commissioner and his staff for two important things that are noted in this particular report. And to make people aware that the Mental Health Works workshop that's coming up, training and awareness of mental health issues in the workplace and in the city, is an amazing kind of initiative. I think it'll be great for our staff. We have to understand that in our community, mental health issues, just talk to a police officer, is one of the biggest problems that our city administration and the city itself faces. It's one of the big health issues in our community. And I love that little statement that says, short training sessions will be offered to the general public in addition to training for the city management and staff closely involved with supporting employees experiencing challenges related to mental health conditions. At this time of stress and low economics in our community, mental health is a big issue. And I just want to pick up on what you said, Councillor Varga. I just hope that more and more people sign up for Notify Me Now. Texas could happen here. The tragedy in Texas with that hurricane and with the tornadoes, we know right now that extreme weather conditions are on our doorstep, and it could happen here. And with something like Notify Me Now, at least you'll be given warning enough to take shelter, and it's important for us all to be a part of that.
Thank you, Councillor Cox.
Just on the Notify Me Now campaign, the first question that came to my mind was, how do you sign up? Because nowhere in the article, nowhere in this information item does it tell you how to do that. I think I did do that with my cell phone, a long time ago, but I'm not sure. There was an article in the paper, and I remember thinking the same thing when I read the article in the paper. There's no information there on how you sign up, encouraging people to sign up, but no information on how you do that. So I'd just like to check and see if I actually did sign up. And I suppose if I go to the city website, it would lead me step by step, but I really hate doing that. But that's just because I'm old, I guess. Okay.
Through the chair, yes, go to the city website and click on the link, and it'll take you right to the application.
Councillor Dumanowski.
Well, just very quickly, Your Worship, I sometimes don't want to repeat myself here, mostly for Colin's sake, but then the conversations we have at committee. But just to add to Notify Me Now, great platform, and I think the points have been made, but when you think about the immediacy of information, and often what this is associated with is how quickly you can get information. We don't want to think about disasters. We don't want to think about issues that are going to necessitate the execution of this platform. But if and when it does happen, timing is on your side if you sign up. We do have significant plants in our community, which other communities have as well. We have the CPRL who run right through this middle of the city, who carry some items that definitely could, in an event, in a disaster situation, be preventable or mitigated by you being notified and moving out of the way. I hate to fearmonger to create impetus for this, but it is an easy thing to sign up for, and it's useful. And I said it there, and I'll say it again. I'm actually quite surprised in today's world of social immediacy and knowing what's going on. This drive for immediate knowledge and information that people haven't jumped on this much quicker. So I'm encouraging them, for all the thousands that are watching at home today, go onto your computer right now and sign up for Notify Me Now.
Good. Any other questions or comments? I think the testing is occurring on May 11th as well, so it's coming up right away. If we could vote. And that was unanimous, thank you.
Our next report is item 5.5 on page 239. It's the Administrative Committee meeting of April 26, and this report's for adoption.
So move.
Comments? Councillor McIntosh?
Thanks, Your Worship. Just a question on the property sale. We have $1 million piece of property. It is going to be tied up for potentially 180 days where the purchaser has the opportunity to do their work. There's obviously some legal time from the city's standpoint, and they're only on the hook for $1,000 should they walk away in that time period. Is that correct? Up until 180 days?
Through the chair to Councillor McIntosh, they have time to clear the initial conditions, and then the 20% deposits are in place. So we actually upped that. Normally it's a 10% deposit on these kinds of sales, but because of the 180-day period or whatever it is, we asked for more deposits than normal. Because it is holding it for such a long time. The reason for that is that this is a company that's new to the city. They plan, construct, and operate their apartment buildings. And so they're coming in and they need to establish themselves and to have time to build this they're coming from Lethbridge, they're finishing something in Lethbridge, and then they're bringing it here. And so they were asking for a longer time to do the final closing.
So at what point does that $1,000 non-refundable deposit turn into the $101,000 deposit, I guess is my question. Because there is a significant amount of time and investment from the city's standpoint there. And it appears to me they have 180 days to still walk away and only leave $1,000 on the table. Unless I'm reading it wrong.
I don't know the answer to that, but this property has been for sale for, I think, 10 years. This is the first bite.
I can help out a little bit with that. Once the conditions precedent are satisfied, the deposit will become non-refundable. And it's important to note that there's a number of things that are beyond the purchaser's control. Their plans have to be approved by the city, and then they have to obtain a development permit. So on a basis of fairness, if those process are not within their control, they probably shouldn't be losing their deposit. But once those conditions have been satisfied, the deposit does become non-refundable.
Okay, Councillor Cox?
My question, I'm not sure who I'm directing it to, so whoever has the answer can just put up their hand. But I read with interest, Southlands is nearly 80% developed, and this development will further complete the Southlands neighborhood. Now that, first of all, doesn't answer my question, which is how close are we to completion? But it's just bad grammar. It's either complete or it's not complete. We'll further, in any event, how close are we to completion?
Go ahead.
Through the chair, I can't give an actual number, but what I can tell you is there's spotted vacant lots throughout the neighborhood. I could hazard a guess and say we're up around 90%. I think that'd be in the ballpark.
Plus, we just rezoned those 12 multifamily units into, and they were basically the remaining, in hopes of selling them because they've been sitting, and then this is a very large piece for multifamily.
Well, my question, I am curious, and that's a satisfactory answer, but I really hated that phrase, further complete.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Do you want to amend it? Okay. Yeah, okay. Right. Okay. Any other questions or comments? If we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Moving on now to reports for reception. Item 6.1, the Municipal Planning Commission meeting minutes of March the 22nd on page 246.
I move this report for reception.
Second that.
Any comments? All right, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Item 6.2 is the Heritage Resources Committee meeting minutes of April the 11th. And on page 253.
I move this report for reception.
Comments? Oh, yeah, sure. Comments, questions? Councillor Pearson?
This is just a quick note on E. The Historical Society of Medicine Hat is going to be having its AGM on the 25th at 7 p.m. at the Esplanade. I just make note of that particular fact because of the great relationship that happens between the HRC and the Historical Society of Medicine Hat. It's always a fascinating enterprise to see how those two organizations, those two groups come together to enrich our community with historical background.
Thank you, Councillor Cox.
Perhaps Councillor Pearson can answer my question on this. What is the Centennial Certificate Project?
In our studies of buildings in our community, we identify when a building is 100 years or older. And those buildings that have reached that landmark receive a certificate from our HRC to recognize their accomplishment that this building has survived 100 years or more, and that's a Centennial Certificate.
So I should look forward to receiving something like that from my drafty old 100-year, 112, 100 and whatever, 13-year-old house.
I'll make note of that, Councillor Cox.
It'll help. It won't help pay the utility bill, but it will help.
About once a year, I seem to sign off about 20 or 30. There's a lot of them, and it's amazing how many buildings there are that have maintained that age or reached that age. So,
Point taken.
yeah. Any other questions or comments? Okay, if we could vote. That was unanimous. Thank you.
I received no notice of motion.
So seeing no more business before this council, we're adjourned.